Paul's coming in now.
Oh, there he is.
Wonderful.
All right, I apologize about that. I had a computer glitch.
That's fine. You weren't the only one. Okay, then I will begin the spiel, if that's all right with everybody. Welcome to the Tuesday, May 24th, 2022 Select Board meeting. I'm Corey Evans. I'm the Vice Chair of the Select Board. The previous Chair, Carrie Thompson's term has expired, so I'll be serving as Chair for the beginning of this meeting before the board reorganizes. In accordance with Mass General Law, this meeting is being held virtually on the Zoom platform. The Zoom link is available on the agenda, which is posted on the website. This meeting will also be live streamed on Facebook. You can find that on Cohasset live streaming on Facebook. It's also being broadcast live on Cohasset 143 TV, and it can be viewed later. The recording can be viewed later both on Facebook and on YouTube. I will open this meeting with a call to order. We're kind of out of order here, so I'll begin with Member Dippold.
Here.
Member Creighton,
Here.
Member Grady,
Present.
and Member Kennedy.
Diane Kennedy here.
Okay, all are invited to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Creighton, if we could use your flag.
Yes.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty. We have a lot to get to tonight, but the news of what happened in Texas just came across my computer screen as I was preparing for this meeting. It's a little bit out of order, but if it's okay with my colleagues, I'd like to have us take a moment of silence to reflect on what we have here. We lost 14 children and a teacher in Texas, and that kind of cuts the core of what we're all trying to do. So just a moment of silence for all those involved. All right, thank you all for that. Public comment is the first thing on the agenda. If there is anybody in the attendees that wishes to speak on any topic they wish, please use the raise hand function here on Zoom, and we can bring you into the meeting to make your comment. Okay, I do not see any hands, so first thing is the reorganization of the select board. This is a standard procedure every time there's an election. Just to go over the process for this, I spoke with council just so that we got everything clear. I will begin with asking for motions to entertain nominations. Anybody who wishes to nominate a member, we will start with the chair position. Anyone who wishes to nominate a member for chair can state that nomination. After all nominations have been heard, we will let each of the nominees have a quick brief minute on what their vision is for the board going forward. After that, we will have a vote in which every member will state their preferred nominee. If we have a majority out of that vote, that person will immediately become chair of this meeting and manage the vice chair and the clerk positions for those elections before we continue the rest of the meeting. If we do not have a majority at that point, we will have to go through a revote, and until we have basically we'll go through that process until we do have consensus and somebody has received a majority of the vote. So if there's no questions on that process, I did my best to explain it. I will ask for motions for nominations at this point.
I would move to nominate Jack Creighton as chair.
I would second that.
We actually don't need seconds for nominations, but that's okay. Yep, no problem. Yep.
I'd like to nominate Corey Evans as chair.
Okay, if there are no other nominations, we have Mr. Jack Creighton and Mr. Corey Evans as nominees for the chair of the select board. Mr. Creighton, would you begin with a quick discussion about your vision for the year that's to come?
I have had many years of experience on this board and on boards and commissions. My vision is very simple, that we need to work together to move our town forward. We have issues of overcrowding, overdevelopment. We have some difficulties in getting basic governmental functions taken care of. And I just think that what I really wish to see happen is all of us to work together as a team with our town manager to ensure that Cohasset is properly governed and that every citizen in Cohasset deserves and receives the type of government that we know we in Cohasset can provide. So I'd like to ask each of you for your vote.
Okay, thank you. For my part, I did my graduate degree, a lot of education in the fields of mediation and conflict resolution, including a good deal of facilitation. I've mediated in court, I've sat across from multinational companies to craft deals. I know how to bring people together, work with different people around town to kind of be sure things move forward. I don't mean any disrespect to my predecessors, but my vision of chair is very different than it has been done in the past. I believe the chair's job is to prepare the board with information properly prepared by the town staff and then largely to get out of the way. I don't believe it's the chair's job to convince anybody or force consensus on an issue. I don't believe it's the chair's job to argue and interject with people. In fact, I sort of believe that the chair's position is almost the weakest voice. The chair speaks for the board, and therefore the chair should not speak without the board's explicit approval. In that way, I feel like the chair sort of gives up their own voice. As vice chair, I've been involved in a lot of the different things that the town has been working on. I know where they are, and I'm ready to get to work right now on bringing a lot of those things forward. I believe this board has the opportunity to really do a lot of good things this year. This is going to be a really great year, and I too would be honored to chair it. So with that out of the way, we will do a vote by roll call. Each member will state their candidate of choice. I'll just follow the same process I did last time, beginning with member Dippold.
My vote would be for Jack Creighton.
Mr. Creighton,
I would vote for Jack Creighton.
Mr. Grady,
I would vote for Jack Creighton.
Member Kennedy.
Vote for Corey Evans.
All right, and Corey Evans, I will vote for Corey Evans. So with the 3-2 vote, Mr. Creighton is the chair of the select board and the gavel is his.
Yes, thank you very much. And Corey, thank you very much. That was a very well thought out nomination speech. And I share a great deal of what you had to say. I think that it is important that the chair chairs and the board deliberates and makes those decisions. And the voice of each member, each of us has been elected, has been through campaigns, and our voices need to be respected, as are those, because we are the voices of people who voted for us. We are also the voices of people who did not vote for us. So I think we all need to move together. And thank you, Corey. You're very gracious, and you did a very good job as vice chair. Moving forward, the chair will entertain motions for vice chair. I see Paul Grady has nominated himself. I assume that's.
No.
Oh.
No, I would, just so I have it clear, can I, if I want to nominate someone,
Oh, yes, now's the time to nominate.
I'd like to nominate Jean Healy Dippold as vice chair.
Okay, Jean Healy is, do you accept the nomination, Jean?
Yes.
All right. Do we have any other nominations? Hearing no, Diane?
No, I'd like to nominate Corey.
Okay. Corey, you accept the nomination?
While I appreciate it, I would decline the nomination. I believe the work that I've done as vice chair is important. And I think going forward, if the board has new leadership is what the board needs.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? We have an uncontested nomination of Jean Dippold. However, I think we shall proceed with the vote. And And I will go basically as people appear on my screen. Diane Kennedy, your vote for vice
Diane-
chair.
Aye for Jean Dipple.
Paul Grady, your vote.
Aye for Gene Dipple.
Corey Evans, your vote.
Corey Evans, aye.
No, your vote. Oh, for Gene Dippold. Okay. Jack Creighton, vote for Gene Dippold. Jean, your vote.
For Jean Haley Dipple.
All right, the vote is unanimous. Gene Dippold is our, Dippold, I'm sorry, Gene, is our vice chair. Moving on, we have the clerk position. Chair will entertain nominations for select board clerk.
I would nominate Paul Grady.
We have a nomination for Paul Grady for clerk. Are there any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, the nominations are closed. Although it's a bit of a formality, I'll proceed with the vote. Corey Evans, your vote.
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Jean Dippold, I'm sorry, Jean.
You can just call me Jean Haley.
Jean Haley. Paul Grady
Aye.
and Jack Creighton, aye. Voted unanimous. Congratulations, Mr. Grady, and congratulations, Jean Healy. Okay, moving forward, just a little housekeeping. Tracy, I am obviously do not have all the information that would normally be available to the person chairing this. So if you could assist me as we go through the agenda, that would be greatly appreciated.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, transient vendor licenses. We have Zach's Ice Cream, we have Nona's Ice Cream, we have Dell's Lemonade. Board members have all received information on these in a packet. Does anybody have any comments, or would anybody like to see us vote individually? Or we could vote for the three of them as a group. Okay, not having seen any objection. But I see our police chief, William Quigley. And as long as Mr. Quigley is here, if he'll wait until after this, I'd like to ask him to make a statement. The chair will look for a nomination to issue transient vendor licenses to Zach's Ice Cream, Nona's Ice Cream, and Dell's Lemonade in the form as already sent to the board in the select board packet. We need a nomination.
So moved. Unless in question for Tracy and Chris, we should be separately moving on each license.
You can do them together, but I don't know if the chief wanted to weigh in as far as the applications.
Chief Quigley, do you have any comments on any of these?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just real quickly, the ice cream vendors in particular, they do have to receive a state permit, and that comes through the local police department. They can either get that through us off, say, Hellbach Police Station, or if they live in Hingham, or we have one person from Revere, they can get it at the local police department. But they do need that state permit, and it is issued through the local police department. So what you're issuing is a vendor permit. They need a state permit for ice cream, which encompasses, the sex offender registry and things like that.
Okay. Any further comment? Jean, did you make that as a motion earlier?
Yeah, though I did have just one question. Chief Quigley, should you be issuing that permit before we vote on this application, or is it, are you comfortable with us voting on it and then you licensing them or giving, or, going through that process, state process?
Traditionally, you guys have issued the permit. These are the same people we have every year. So if it was someone, from left field, we'd, take a closer look. But, we do all the checks, but this will work this year, but we should change it in the future.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, let's proceed to a roll call vote. Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, I.
Corey Evans.
Just point of order, did we have a second? My apologies, we got kind of stuck in the discussion. I didn't hear a second for the motion.
Would you like to second it?
Oh,
Corey.
so we did have a motion, we did have a motion.
We have a motion, no second.
Okay,
I'll second it if,
Okay. Okay. Motion is made and seconded. Roll call vote. Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, I.
Corey Evans,
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Healy,
Jean Haley, aye.
Jack Creighton, aye. Just so everybody knows about how determining who I asked for, it's really as they have displayed upon my particular Zoom screen. So next thing, there's a one-day liquor license for Friends of Holly Hill for 6/11/2022 and 6/25/2022. Is there any discussion?
Jack, I have Meredith Laban here. She's the applicant.
Hi, Meredith. Thank you for coming. Can you tell us what you're planning?
Sure. On June 11th, we will have a dinner for 10 to 12 people. It was part of an auction item that someone won last fall, and they're coming to the farm for a private dinner from 6 to 9. And we will be serving beer and wine at that event. And then the second event is on June 25th, an event that the farm has done many times before, farm to table dinner. We're looking to have a maximum of about 75 people at that event. Similar, we'll be serving dinner. We'll be serving beer and wine from 6 to 9 right on the farm.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Meredith? Okay, I call the vote, roll call vote. Diane Kennedy, you move down to the left, so you get to vote first.
Yeah, do we have a motion?
You're right.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the one-day liquor license for Friends of Holly Hill Farm for 6/11/2022. And is that a rain date on the 6/25? Sorry. It's like
Nope, a second date.
the second date, also a one-day liquor license on the second date of June 25th, 2022.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have the motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion. All those in, I will proceed to a roll call vote. Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, I.
Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Jean Healy,
Jean Haley, aye.
Corey Evans,
Corey Evans, aye.
Jack Creighton, aye. The motion passes. Thank you very much, Meredith. You guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have an event application for the farmer's market, June 2nd through October 6th. Is there anybody from the farmer's market?
Michelle Hubley is coming in, Jack.
Okay. Thanks, Tracy.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, it's Michelle Hubley. Hello, everyone.
Thanks for coming, Michelle.
Well, thanks for inviting me.
So tell us about your event application and what you plan for the farmer's market.
Well, I'd love to be able to tell you something different, but it's much of the same. And in fact, it's a lot of the same. We plan to open on Thursday, June 2nd. Time of opening for the market is 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., but we'll be setting up from 12:30 on Thursday afternoons, breaking down finishing up between 6:30 and 7 p.m. It will run until Thursday, October 6th. It's basically the same format that we had last year, which is something that we've been doing in the format we've been doing it in by closing that street. Is it Long Street? Is the short street Long Street? Yeah. Closing Long Street for some of the food trucks, setting up tables for a community relax at tables, and then the music on the common. We know that the parking is the same as last year, no cars on the common. We still have about the same number of vendors, 35-ish, come or go. Not everybody comes every week. And we do have regular vendors, occasional vendor that come every other week, one-timers, and then we have a little squadron of children vendors, youth vendors, which is always very exciting. Let's see what else. We will be asking permission to utilize the back corner again of the town hall, as we have in the past, to stash that mobile mini unit. And as well, so that we are not utilizing and folks aren't going into the town hall, we've rented a porta-john to be right next to it. So we do store a lot of stuff that's used at the market on a regular basis, and with the help in the mobile mini unit. So that's a great help. With the help of the launch program, the South Shore launch program, we're able to employ them, and they are an amazing assistance, an amazing addition to the market. So we love the symbiotic relationship that we have with them and the different organizations that help put this market on for the community. It just becomes a community gathering. So with your permission, we'd like to ask that the mobile mini unit be able to be placed there. I'll also be in touch with Brian, as we always are, and with Tracy to let them know when it comes. I wish there was something different. We're not doing any fireworks on the common this year, so I can't tell you we need a permit for that, or live bands. It's still our singular musicians that have come for the last now 26 years. We're in our 26th season.
Is it not normal practice for this board to waive the $75 weekly fee? I believe it is, and the chair would like to entertain a motion from the board to waive the $75 fee. Corey?
Might I suggest we approve the permit first, and then we can vote to waive the fee?
That's fine.
And just one question, and Diane, I think this came up when we were talking about the Social Arts Center, but Social Art Center application, do we need an events or an entertainment permit? And I know there was back and forth about that. Maybe Chris or Tracy, if you want to weigh in about, because of the music issue. And if the answer is no, that's fine. I just recall us, as long as we're sort of tying up all loose ends, that may be something that we should have before us too.
Diane, do you know the answer to that, or your hand is still up, Diane?
Yeah, because I just put it up to answer this question, which
Oh,
is,
okay.
the answer is if there's live music, there does need to be an entertainment license, but I think, Michelle, you said that that's not planned at this point yet, correct?
Well, no, we have our singular musician. We
Okay.
have Ray comes,
Okay.
David comes, we have a guitarist.
But nothing beyond that.
No.
That-
I didn't
that-
mean to joke with the big live
No,
bands and
that's what
parades,
I
yeah.
got caught up on that. Sorry. And I was trying to switch from one device to the other, so I apologize, but
Yeah.
I do believe that does need an entertainment license. It's just a matter of filling that out.
Okay, that would be the first time in 26 years, but happy to do it. But I think it's the first time. I'm not sure what it entails or.
Literally, it's just an entertainment. Yeah, it's
okay.
it's pretty pro forma, Michelle.
Okay,
Yeah, just stop by the town manager's office and speak to Tracy or somebody there, and they'll walk you right through that.
okay. Thank you, Tracy, in advance.
And Tracy, could you put that on the next agenda. And I think we can proceed with approving this as it's before us, with the understanding that on the next agenda, we'll just approve, well, we will consider approving that.
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Tracy. Do we have a motion to approve the farmer's market?
So moved.
We have a motion moved and seconded to approve the farmer's market from June 2nd through October 6th. Is there any further discussion?
But could I just add sort of an
Sure.
amendment to that approval, which is that since they're opening up next week, that there's no problem with their music at that point, if it's, if the board's okay with that. And then, because we're not meeting again until the 6th.
Does anybody, do you want to make that as a motion to the?
Yep, I'd like to just amend my motion, original motion,
Okay,
which I don't
you
believe has
amend
been
that.
seconded. So,
so the motion in its entirety approves that with the understanding no entertainment is needed for that date.
I
And
think
that-
Corey has his hand up, Jack. I don't know,
Yep.
Corey, if that's a ongoing hand or okay.
Yeah, by the way, I appreciate you putting your hand up, but everybody's going to stay unmuted. So if you want to speak, speak.
Okay, I just, I seem to recall on the entertainment, and Diane, correct me if I'm incorrect here, but I thought there was a carve out for like acoustic music. And that's, I mean, the farmer's market is more acoustic than it is like a live band. So I do wonder if that's kind of how it's been approved before, because it is just a guy on a guitar, frankly. I mean, that was unnecessarily mean. It's a great guy with a great guitar.
It's very good.
It's
But
not
he
like a
does-
big rock band.
Yeah, but
if,
Corey, he does have an electric amplifier.
yeah,
It's disguised as a tree, but it really is there.
Okay, fine, thank you.
yeah, technically, yes. And I do think we talked about this a few weeks ago, as Jean noted, that when we were talking about the Art Center, that it's probably time to review our policies. We don't want to make people jump through hoops. We just want to make sure there's equal application of the law. So anyway.
Does that include, does that include the vocals by Chris Senior as well?
No, it's
There you go.
That requires. a
I will not
special-
approve that.
I do a lot of things, but I don't sing, Michelle.
Don't you do the trombone? Is that
Saxophone, actually.
saxophone? That's
Play the
Oh,
sax-
something you shouldn't have told me, Chris.
I have a saxophone, Chris. I hope you play it better than I play mine, though.
It's been a long time since I picked mine up. So
So there was a motion and Diane
Yes.
amended the motion. So I will second the amended motion.
Okay. Roll call vote. Paul Grady,
Already on.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Corey Evans,
Corey Evans, aye.
Jean Healy,
Healy, aye.
and Jack Creighton, aye. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, now what I would like to do under the 48-hour rule, because it is early before we want people who are there. We've had this horrible tragedy that Corey very eloquently, I think, spoke for the town, and thank you again for that eloquence, Corey. It was very touching. But I think in the light of this, it would be appropriate for the chief to speak about the situation that happened in Texas and the town law enforcement not response, but any comments that you might have, Chief Quigley.
Okay. Yeah, obviously, this situation in Texas, the Robb Elementary School is still unfolding. I think there's a lot of inaccurate information out there. What we're getting from official sources is 14 children have been killed, 1 teacher, 2 police officers shot. I'm actually reading it right now. It comes in pretty real time. Suspect's an 18-year-old. He is deceased. Unfortunately, those numbers are probably going to climb. I was in contact with the superintendent late this afternoon, class superintendent. He was going to send out a message to parents. We will have increased patrols around the campuses in the coming days and coming weeks, and probably right through the end of the school year. There's some standing concerts that are occurring tomorrow at Osgood. There'll be an increased police presence there. And you know, we do have good protocols and procedures in place. And, you know, we obviously reviewed all those late this afternoon, and we're just taking steps to make sure everybody's safe and has a feeling of security here. It's just an unspeakable tragedy. And, you know, what do you say?
And I want people at home to be aware that specifics about the town response, for obvious reasons, will not be given out. But I can assure you the town is very much aware of the protection of our schools and kids and adults. And the town is taking the appropriate actions. It is.
I can share with the board the official from the Fusion Center. I'll send that to the group. You know, so it's very accurate information.
Okay. Yeah, and Tracy, could you make sure that we get that posted on our town website?
No, I mean, there's some, there's private communications that I can share, confidential communications.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So it's free. I'll send it to individual members.
Okay,
And Jack, just to let you know, as a parent, I did receive a lot of the information that Chief Quigley is alluding to in terms of the schools reached out to all the parents and said, we're going to have, you know, increased police presence, including at regularly scheduled events. And so I appreciated that communication and your quick response, Chief Quigley. So thank you.
Can I second that, Chief? As a parent of a child in the school system, thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you.
it's very sad. Words just.
I just have to say, I have no idea what happened. I am absolutely physically shaking. So whatever, I will catch up after this meeting, but I'm really, I don't even know what to say, but thank you. I know that we're very lucky to have the leadership in town that we do, so.
Very sad, Diane. And we'll, I just don't want to. It is, those are, if you have kids, grandkids, this is just the worst possible nightmare. And I think, our town officials are to be commended because quietly behind the scenes, they already had protocols set up. They knew what to do and they got out the word to the parents as quickly as possible. So I think we can be grateful for for our town leadership for doing this, and thank you. Okay, I guess we'll move on to the approval of the band sale, and treasurer collector Paula Linhares is she here? Oh, Paula?
Hello. Oh, it looks like my video's reversed in a second. Okay, there we go. Okay. I believe you have all received a bunch of paperwork through either Betsy or Tracy about the ban. This ban is, there's two pieces of it. The $200,000 for Treats Pond and the $750,000 for the town hall renovation. Both these pieces were approved by town meeting back on May 24th of 2021. There were Articles 15 and Article 16. The Treats Pond, that has to do with easements and to make sure there's proper drainage for the Treats Pond. And the town hall renovation includes a detailed engineered design, construction plans, and the bidding process for the reconstruction. In addition to town hall. Does anyone have any like generic questions, we actually held the sale this past week on, well, last week on May 18th. And the winning bid was for 2%. That's the net interest cost. There's no premium. And that was by the Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod. And there were 5 other bidders, which was actually pretty good. And so the note is going to be issued on June 1st of this year, and it's June 1st of next year. So does anyone have any questions about what it is we're talking about in first?
Paula, you might just. Ban.
I'm
For
sorry, I
those-
didn't get that.
Oh, for those people at home, could you just explain what BAN stands for?
Oh, it's a bond anticipation note. So like a lot of times you can bond these projects for, you know, a couple of decades. But sometimes you just do it for a year or two at first, and then you kind of bundle and get a bunch of things together and then go out for a bigger borrowing. And then you get better rates and put it out for like 30 years. So depending on the situation, we work with financial advisors that specialize in that thing and those kinds of decisions. And it's pretty common for us to do some sort of a ban or a bond around this time every year. We're either banning things, smaller projects, or when we get a lot, we'll put in a bond and then go out for long term. And
So it's kind of like a pre-borrowing, so we get a critical mass that's large enough to go to the public
Right.
market. Okay. Thank you.
exactly, yeah. And sometimes that's all you do. If it's small enough, sometimes that's all we do. But I suspect there's other things coming up. I suspect that in the next year or two, we might be mixing this with some of the other borrowing that we're doing and go out to bond.
Okay. Any comments? Tracy, did anybody sign in to speak to this?
I don't see anybody in the audience with their hand up.
Okay, thank you. Comments from the board?
I guess I just have a question about what actually is needed from us. Is there anything we need to read into the record, or is
Yep.
it simply a motion?
Right, you have the select board vote that somebody needs, I'm sorry, I didn't get who is the clerk of the board.
Paul Grady.
All right, Paul, I'm gonna, if you wouldn't mind, one of the papers that I sent was the vote of the select board. If you could read that, that would be awesome. And then if you all could vote on that. And then we're gonna have to do signatures tomorrow.
Where did you say that was? I apologize.
This is the select board vote.
Paul, if you're looking at the OneDrive, you should be able to locate it on the OneDrive under tonight's documents.
Yeah, I'm pulling that. I'm just actually looking at the agenda for a second, so I'm getting that up, Tracy. Thanks.
Tracy, is that something you could isolate and send it to Paul?
Yeah, I can send it over to his email. 1 minute.
That'd be nice. Thank you very much, Tracy. I appreciate it.
What you're actually doing here is just giving final approval for town officials to go ahead and make this all happen. So like I said, the sale has already happened, but there's paperwork and whatnot that needs to be filed and signatures. The town clerk will be signing and sealing some of the paperwork. And I'm gonna need at least 3 select board members to come in tomorrow, if that's at all possible, and sign this. And Paul, yours is required. Is that doable for you to stop by the town hall tomorrow?
That's a tough one. Depends on what time. Later the better, I would assume, but for me. 'Cause
Well,
I'm-
anytime during the day, I unfortunately, due to family circumstances, won't be in tomorrow, but town hall is open between 8:30 and 4 tomorrow.
I should be
I
able
mean,
to,
sorry, 8:30 and 4:30, yeah.
yeah, will do my best to get out of town to make it. That's my promise.
Okay.
So I'm just reading your article now. So what did you need from me, Paul? Besides the signature?
The select board vote, if you could read that into the record and if all the members could then vote on that.
Oh, so just read it. I'm sorry. So I read
Correct? Yep.
vote of the select board. I, the clerk.
Read, yeah, read that whole document, and that's one of the documents that you're gonna be asked to sign tomorrow.
Vote of the select board. I, the clerk of the select board of the town of Cohasset, Massachusetts, certify that at a meeting of the board held May 24th, 2022, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified and at which a quorum was present, the following votes were unanimously passed, all of which appear upon the official record of the board in my custody. Voted to approve the sale of a $950,000, 2.00% general obligation bond anticipation note, parentheses, the note, of the town dated June 1st, 2022, and payable June 1st, 2023, to the Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod at par and accrued interest, if any. Further voted that in connection with the marketing and sale of the note, the preparation and distribution of the notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated May 12th, 2022, and a final official statement dated May 18th, 2022, each in such form as may be approved by the town treasurer, be hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Further voted that we authorize and direct the town treasurer to establish a post-issuance federal tax compliance procedures in such form as the town treasurer and bond counsel deem sufficient, or if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update said procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax exempt status of the note. Further voted that any certificates or documents relating to the note, parentheses, collectively the documents, may be executed in several counterparts, each of which shall be regarded as an original and all of which shall constitute one and the same document. Delivery of an executed counterpart of a signature page to a document by electronic mail in a PDF file or by other electronic transmission shall be as effective as delivery of a manually executed counterpart signature page to such document, and electronic signatures on any of the documents shall be deemed original signatures for the purpose of the documents and all matters relating thereto having the same legal effect as original signatures. Further voted that each member of the select board, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes. I further certify that the votes were taken at a meeting open to the public, that no vote was taken by secret ballot, that a notice stating the place, date, time, and agenda for the meeting, which agenda included the adoption of the above votes, was filed with the town clerk and a copy thereof posted in a manner conspicuously visible to the public at all hours in or on the municipal building that the office of the town clerk is located, or if applicable, in accordance with an alternative method of notice prescribed or approved by the Attorney General as set forth in 940 CMI 29.03 2B, at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays, prior to the time of the meeting, and remained so posted at the time of the meeting that no deliberations or decision in connection with the sale of the note were taken in executive session, all in accordance with General Law C.30A 18-25 as amended, dated May 24th, 2022, Clerk of the Select Board.
Second.
We have a motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, all those, we'll proceed to the vote. Corey Evans,
Corey Evans, aye.
Gene Healy,
Jean Haley, aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, I.
Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Jack Creighton, aye. The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Paulo. That was very well done.
Thank you. And just a reminder, there's going to be 5 signatures for the select board tomorrow. And Paul, you've got an extra 2. There's 5 yellow tabs and 2 green for you. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, folks.
Okay. Moving on, we're actually only 3 minutes behind, which is going to be one of my goals to move these meetings along as expeditiously as possible, as long as they're complete. Treats Pond easements. Chris, do you want to address those or?
Sure. So the town with council has been working intensively with each of the easement holders. And what the board has in front of it is a packet of easements. That said, I would recommend that the board consider deferring this for a couple of weeks, if it's okay, to maybe defer a couple of weeks. I don't have counsel available tonight to answer any questions. She's unfortunately handling a 40B hearing in another community. So I can answer basic questions, but I can't get into legal questions. And if the board had any other questions, I wouldn't be able to answer them tonight. That said, if the board's okay, that my recommendation would be to defer. If you'd rather go forward, I'll answer as best I can.
Okay. So comments from the board?
Just given the nature of this matter and the length of time it's been before the board in various forums, I would agree that I would prefer, I'd be more comfortable taking a vote with council here to be able to address our questions.
Mhm. Any other comments?
I would probably say I'd be comfortable voting on these if it seems like these are necessary to do either way if we have questions. So I'd be comfortable voting on it, but I think deferring makes sense as well.
Paul, do you have any thoughts?
No, I'm kind of formulating right now, Mr. Chair. So again, being new to this, I know what happened over there, but I'm no thoughts at the moment.
Jane, do you have some thoughts?
I think on one hand, absolutely, this is something that has long needed to be done, and it's a process we're working towards. I think, though, that we want to sort of wrap things up on our end, including everything we think that we need to do and address, including with the help of counsel if need be. So I would probably feel more comfortable having counsel here to, again, make sure that, you know, we've done everything we need to do on our end to make sure this is wrapped up appropriately.
Yeah. My comment, I am aware of some information, and, Chris, you're aware of it as well, that the moving forward with this required a conservation easement. And that easement was granted by the Conservation Commission, I believe, late last week. Unfortunately, it also required approval by the state. And because of the timing, it required an emergency approval, which our Conservation Commission felt comfortable issuing, but the state has not. So there are some questions about whether it truly was an emergency. So I don't know how this impacts that, but I think it's something that we'll be able to move forward on. But I think it strengthens Chris's thought that we probably ought to get counsel in here before we do this. I do think we want to assure that the Treats Pond neighbors that this does not indicate a lack of will on the part of the town to proceed with this. This has gone on a long time. It's been a lot of work put into it. The neighbors very graciously have issued these, signed these easements. So this, putting it off for just a little, what we hope is a legal technicality, does not indicate any lack of will on the part of the town to get this resolved. Is that a fair assessment, Chris? Of
Yes,
where
Chairman Creighton, I would agree with you, and I think that was well put.
Yeah, thank you. Well, that's because now I find out you play a saxophone. Who can argue with a saxophonist? Okay, so, Mr. Grady.
I actually have a question for Chris. So Chris, we can anticipate getting this done because I do know about the town putting in the easements for it as expeditiously as possible. So they know that we're not behind the curve or the people behind it.
Yes, so DPW and our consulting engineer are working very closely with the state. They refiled a bunch of materials with them yesterday. So they're working very aggressively on that. The Conservation Commission did approve the emergency action back on May 5th after a very healthy public conversation. And I know, and again, I really appreciate the residents who've been so cooperative in getting to this final version after a long time coming. And I know that they're eager for this to be completed as well. So
do we have any anticipated turnaround time by the state?
I'm watching it every day at this point. So, you know, they refiled things yesterday. I'm hoping to hear something as soon as possible. And once I hear something, I'll share it with all of you.
And we'll have it as at least part of the town manager's report at our next meeting. Tracy, could you make sure that's just a note to have that on the agenda?
Sure.
Yeah, I think people feel better if they see that that it just doesn't disappear, that even if we report in 2 weeks that we didn't get a resolution, at least we're coming back and reporting it. Thank you, Chris. You've been very helpful on this, by the way. Okay, so do we need a vote to defer? Does
I think
anybody?
Diane has a question, John.
Oh, Diane, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just want to confirm because I would be more comfortable given the seriousness of this deferring, but I want to make sure that that's not going to delay anything should any answer come down sooner.
No.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Then I'll move that we defer this agenda item to another meeting.
I'll second it.
Okay. We have a motion to defer this till another meeting. It's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, proceed to a roll call vote. Corey Evans,
Ray Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Jean Healy,
Jean Healy, aye.
Jack Creighton, aye. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And that was a good point, Diane, to do something so the neighbors have certainty. Okay, moving forward. Is Don Piat here for the fiscal 22 budget update? Hi, Don.
Good evening, everybody.
Can we talk you out of leaving?
No, I'm sorry.
All right, well, anyway, on with your report.
All right, well, like months past, I'm gonna just do a quick overview of each fund instead of putting all the materials up there. I know you've had them since last week, so I'll go through each fund. I'll stop for questions and then we can go to some overall questions if you have them. So starting with the general fund, and let me step back, all funds through April 30th are all in good shape, either hitting or exceeding budgeted revenues or having good results on the expenditure side, meaning not many areas of concern about any departments going over budget. So starting with the general fund, revenues are at 95% collected through April. Leading that is a number of our local receipts, which are basically our revenue sources that aren't property taxes or state assistance. Motor vehicle excise, meals and rooms and license and permits are doing great. Those are just a few of the contributing factors to our 95% collection rate. Expenditure side, we're at 78.5% expended. So we're in good shape, but because of the winter, this is one of the first years in the last few that we've exceeded the budget. By law, we can exceed the budget and raise it on the next year's recap if necessary. However, historically, we've been able to cover these deficits from our year-end transfers. At this point, we have not had any draws on the advisory reserve fund. So we know we have surpluses there, among others that will, and I expect to cover any deficits that we get into towards year end. So that's where we're at for the general fund. I'd be happy to stop now and take any questions if the board has any.
So Don, you said because of the winter, and I'm sorry if I'm causing feedback, let me know.
No, yeah, so the winter, we had a lot of snow events
Okay,
or weather that required DPW to go out and ice or sand the roads. So it's not just a significant snowstorm that incurs significant costs. It's also any time that the weather hits a certain point that the roads start to get a little icy or unsafe in town. The DPW crews are out there doing what they need to do to keep the town safe. So it's not just big storms, it's also those types of events, which far exceeded any that we've had in the last few years.
I thought that's what you meant by referring to winter, and I see the percent increase, but I just wanted to plain language that a little bit.
Sure, sorry about that.
Is there any further discussion? Chair will entertain a motion.
We just move, no motions needed on these are just updates.
Oh,
But
okay.
I'll move on
Even
to the next fund, which is a sewer fund. Almost 93% collected. Big drivers usage and our connection fees, which are essentially one-time fees. But still usage is at about 76%, which is a little bit below target. However, I don't expect any significant issues between now and the end of the year. I think the revenue budgets here will have a surplus. But just as a reminder, sewer, those bills are based on water usage. So we've had a bit of a wet season or wet year in first couple quarters. So our water commitments were down, which would also drive the sewer commitments to also be down. So with that being said, 93% collected through the end of April. I think we're in good shape there. Expenditures, they're showing it about 88% budgeted. And I think their expenditure side will be okay by the end of the year as well. We've been working over the last few years to try to beef up some of the sewer budgets to make sure we're not too tight and have some flexibility throughout the year without having any significant issues about having to pay for anything that comes up. And over the last few years, they've done great in doing so. So again, I think at 88% and knowing what else is out there, we should be in good shape for sewer. Take any questions on that. And hearing none, I'll just move on to water. 86% collected. Again, heavily driven by usage and one-time connection fees. And they're also right around 81% of their budget expended. And I've just worked closely with Brenda for all her year-end activity and purchase orders and encumbrances. And water department will also be in good shape closing out the year. So all three funds going into June 30th into our last month, I think we're doing well. So happy to take any overall questions.
Any further questions or comments from the board? Anybody from the population, the audience? Well, thank you, Don.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Have a good night.
Yes, thank you. Moving on to
Thanks,
the
Don.
HR update. Chris, I assume you take this.
Thanks, Chair Creighton. So you're actually ahead of time now, which is exciting. I don't know, Kim, are you? I don't know which one you are. If Tracy can find you and promote you. So Kim Roy, who's been serving as our interim town clerk, at least until this week, with the election and installation of Lisa Legg as the new clerk, has now become the full-time HR director. So I want to thank Kim for her service as the interim clerk. She did a great job stepping in. She's actually working with Lisa to help train and assist. So it's great that she's still in the building. She was kind of wearing two hats because, as all of you know, Miriam Johnson retired unexpectedly over the winter. So Kim kind of wore two hats on this. So she's now back to wearing one, plus as a trainer. So I'm grateful to formally introduce her as the town's HR director. And again, if I know she was calling in from home, so I don't see her.
I'm trying to let her in now, Chris. She's just having
Okay.
difficulties. 1 minute.
Okay. So that's Kim. I also wanted to formally, so Michelle Leary, I think all of you have worked with her to one extent, maybe not Paul so much. She's been really outstanding. She started with us working in DPW with Brian Joyce and Sewer, and then became our procurement person and moved up further, and has been doing effectively, as she's done more and more as the town's been active with the school facilities review and the town hall project and the field study. She's really been instrumental in kind of spearheading these. And she's effectively been doing the work of an assistant town manager, underpaid. So I'm formally formally going to change her title to assistant town manager. It doesn't change any of the official, there's still only one town manager. It doesn't change the town manager act or anything like that. But she's doing the work of an assistant town manager. She's really stepped up and done some really great work, and I hope to keep her for a while. So she'll continue to do great work. She's not able to be with us tonight. She's actually at her daughter's very first middle school concert from the pandemic. The last two were postponed, so she actually gets to be there in person for an actual concert, right? So, but Michelle's done great work. Again, the field study was the most recent. Really, been instrumental with residents, with organizations like Cohasset Youth Baseball, Softball, and others. So I'm very excited to internally promote her. I know some folks have been poking for a while about expanding the leadership circle a little bit. It's not a new headcount. She's still, it's just going to be a new title and a little bit more money that we're able to find in the budget. So, any questions for me on that?
If I may. Yep. Mr.
Yeah,
Craig?
go ahead.
Oh, no, I just, after I've been working with Michelle for 2 years now, and Chris, I applaud efforts to recognize her and to keep her in the building. So Michelle, if you're listening, thanks for your work on everything you're doing. I know you're juggling a lot of things, and it's good to see you more recognized for that.
Diane, did you put your hand up?
Yeah, but Jean's was up first.
That's,
It's okay, it faded into my background. Carol.
No, it's still bright.
I'm not. I'm not-
Our jaundiced hands.
Yes, our hands. Yeah, no, just to echo what Corey was saying, I've worked with Michelle on various projects and, agree she's done a great job, and I'm happy to see you promote her, Chris. And Kim's also done a great job too. She came into Cohasset pretty quickly and was able to spearhead things, including this most recent election. And so, that's great as well. And we thank her for her work. That she helped us through that interim time period.
Thanks, Jane. Diane?
Yeah, just want to keep piling it on. And obviously thanks to both of them, but for stepping up. And I just want to point out that Michelle started, I believe, as the admin for the sewer department. And like immediately everybody in town hall knew what skills she brought to the position. And I remember when Chris wanted to kind of move her into more of a managerial role, the sewer commissioners weren't happy at the time because they were losing such a great talent. But talent does need to be tended to. So I'm really thrilled for her, and look forward to continuing to work with both of them.
Thank you, Diane. Any other?
Oh, there's Kim. So.
Well, I will echo that. I've seen Michelle step into various roles, highly competent, gets things done on a deadline. Bill McGowan is still crying. Bill McGowan, our sewer commission, is still crying over the loss, but he'll get over it. But anyway, thank you very, very much. I think it's important that we recognize town employees, and I think the select board has just done a very good job, so you're to be congratulated. So I see Ms. Roy is here.
Yes, I was having technical difficulty and it wouldn't allow me to come in, so I'm using Tracy's computer. So, hi, everybody.
I just, you were just thanked by folks for your services.
Oh.
We were
was
singing
such-
your praises.
Oh, thank you. I can tell you, it was such a blessing to be your interim town clerk. I enjoyed every single day of it. It was just the best. And I'm so happy to be staying. You have a wonderful team here of hardworking, smart employees, and I'm just so happy to be staying. Just the best. So thank you. And being a great green community, you've recycled, and I am your recycled.
Yes, there's a green band around your picture.
I have been recycled, and I'm so grateful for that. Anyway. so
Don't let
thank you.
anybody leave. The good people have to, so I'm gonna find a way to keep Don too, I wish. So
Yeah, you need to do that, Chris. You need.
on the next, so the next step is the finance director search. So Don is gonna be leaving us for the private sector. His wife is actually heading for their second child's delivery this weekend. That's the schedule. So hopefully things will go quickly and smoothly for her. And good news next week. So that said, Don will be with us through the end of June. He was going to be taking maternity leave anyway, but I'll still be available to come in and work through the basics. And then I'm looking to retain him in July and August with his new firm to do the closeout, because our auditing firm can't help us close out and do the audit at the same time. Now, at the same time, we need to look to hire someone else. So Tim and I put our heads together. I called Jim Powers, our auditor, immediately and said, Jim, what's out there? He said, not a lot. That said, he promised to do his best to look and see what's going on. Municipal finance is a very hard field to hire in, actually finances in general, but municipal finance in particular. That said, Kim and I said, hey, what can we do? So we're bringing on Community Paradigm, a company that does a lot of searches, and they have connections, and they have former town managers from all over the region in their world. So they know the people to call and recruit. So they're kind of recruiters for us on this, not so much assessors, because we can ask questions and vet people. And it's really a town accountant we're looking for. I realize that Don has filled the finance director part, the very public part of the role, very well. That said, what you don't see, like an iceberg, most of his work is being a town accountant. Being a CPA, we've been very fortunate. Hope that we can find somebody with his qualifications to do that, because I think we have a small finance team, and we have a lot of things going on, and having a really highly qualified municipal accountant is really important. And again, municipal accounting rules are different, just like being a civil lawyer or a criminal lawyer, right? The rules in public or private sector accounting are very different than municipal accounting. That said, we're out there. We'll be looking. Once we finalize the ad, we'll circulate to all of you. Feel free to spread it far and wide. And we're going to advertise it as the town accountant finance director, emphasize the town accountant part, because it's really critical. And again, we want someone who can also be public. At the same time, in the interim, Paul Linares is the deputy finance commissioner. You've seen her tonight. She's stepping up into more of that role. So she does bonding, a lot of other things for the town. She works on the budget book. She's very well acquainted with a lot of what we do day to day, although she's not an accountant. That said, she does the finance side. So she'll be stepping into that role in Don's stead as needed over the next few months. So she'll be a help to me. So we have that covered. And again, hopefully we'll find someone quickly, and I'll be able to put someone in front of you all as soon as we can. So any questions for me on the finance director?
Questions from the board? Jean, Corey, Paul walked away. Diane, any questions?
No, I was just gonna say, I was gonna be fresh and say that in our house, the solution to all problems, including Dawn leaving, is always duct tape.
You said that. And
So
Paul
please
agreed.
don't do that, because this is a public meeting and I'll be in real trouble.
There's a phrase in the automotive industry which goes, lumpy duct tape is a sign of poor workmanship. So if you're gonna duct tape it, it must be smooth.
No duct tape. I need accountant tape here. So good green eye shade. The last thing I want to point out in this little segment is just what we've done this last year. There were 8 retirements, and they range from public works to the HR director and the fire chief. So it was a complicated year, and most of those folks had extensive service with the town. To our good fortune, several, Jane and Linda in particular, have been helping out. We pay them on a part-time basis, them and help train and fill in. So we're very grateful for that. That said, they're retired, and at some point we're going to lose them entirely. But we've been fortunate. We have a good place to work. I think people know it is a good place to work, and we've been able to recruit some really strong candidates. That said, the hardest area we've had to recruit on right now is public works. Finding people that have CDL licenses is a challenge. We're in contract negotiations now with AFSCME on public works, and we're hoping to negotiate a trainee position into the contract.
Yeah. Excuse me, Chris, could you explain for the people at home what a CDL license is?
I'm sorry. We all use these acronyms all the time, Jack, and I apologize. A commercial driver's license. That's what a CDL. Somebody can drive a truck, basically, a heavy duty truck, and it requires testing, and it's about $10,000 now. They've ramped the requirements up quite a lot, and it costs about $10,000 to take the classes, to take the test, to get certified. So if somebody's going to go and do that, they're probably not going to come to us first. And there's a great demand. I know you've seen the trucking shortage and trucker shortages. This is to move almost any other piece of equipment. You can drive a pickup truck without a CDL, but you cannot drive the heavy duty stuff that we do use, including some of the big dump trucks and big plows and some of the equipment at the recycling transfer facility. So we're hoping to negotiate that into the contract. That said, we've been recruiting, and that's been our perpetual hard spot to find. We also just lost the number 2 guy there. I had mentioned a couple of weeks ago. He retired after 35 years. So, fortunately, we had a great person internally who's moved up and filled that slot. And we're hoping to be able to find some other folks to recruit. So that's, it's been a very busy year. And again, I really want to thank Kim. Kim stepped in the middle of the year, right? When the HR director retires, you stop do recruiting. So Kim was really instrumental.
We're getting some feedback. Is everybody muted on their home? Because sometimes that causes it just went away.
Okay. So so we're good. It's been a challenging but successful year on the HR front. And again, I don't foresee that kind of a wave of retirements again. I think a lot of people held off till after the pandemic and then said, hey, I got a lot of time in. I think it's time to go out and enjoy our next chapter. So we're very fortunate to have those folks for so many years. And hopefully we're starting some new folks who give us, they've been on 40 years, but I'll take 10 at this point, 5 or 10. So that's that. Any questions about any of that? And if not, we can move on to the next section.
Well, the only comment that I would have is with all the retirements and all that, I think it'd be very helpful for the board or organizational chart of all the various positions and what they're charged to do. And I think this is a good time with the turnover. And if we could have something, a report like that ready for our goals meeting, which is coming up. I don't know, Tracy, when is our goals meeting?
June 6th.
June 6th. Is that enough time? Chris, and probably
yeah, we can update. I think we could definitely update like a mini org chart, I guess, showing where people are in departments.
It helps for the select board to properly do their job to understand that.
The budget book does have an org chart in it, and it shows kind of an overview. It doesn't have every single person in it, so I can do that. We can like kind of flesh that out and show where staff are located.
Yeah, that'd be very helpful.
No problem.
We are now 15 minutes ahead, or 12 minutes ahead. So I'm trying to think. I think we should not do the police and fire chief until 8:30. But I think the Norfolk County liaison update might be appropriate. Is everybody on the board comfortable with this? We're moving things a little bit out of order. I'm trying to prioritize. I think people will be interested in the police chief and the fire chief, so I want to keep to that time frame. But we're running 12 minutes ahead of schedule, so I don't want to bump that up. Does anybody have an objection to discussing the Norfolk County liaison now?
No.
There is someone in the attendees with their hand up. I'm not sure if that
Okay,
is a comment of some
yeah, I
sort.
can't see that. Tracy, who is that?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I don't know if you can see me, but that's okay. I just thought if you wanted something to fill in for a second, I missed the public comment portion because unfortunately I went to the town hall. I thought the meeting was going to be in face-to-face after the town meeting was held, and so I was there.
Well, Christine, go right ahead.
Okay.
Your public comment.
All right, thank you. I really hate to bring a sour note. I really do. And forgive me because I know you're just reconstituting after the elections. But I wanted to talk about a matter I've been pursuing with the town for almost 4 years. And it's not just a personal matter. It is, but I assume that the town's policy at issue is not just personal to me, but one that affects other residents. What I'm talking about is a violation of my rights under the Cohasset bylaw that states facility permits shall be issued to vehicle owners who own real estate within the town. Little background, my 2 sisters and I own a home at 62 Cedar Street, which our parents bought in 1944. We all grew up there. We graduated from Cohasset High School, all of us in the early 1960s. And we inherited this house when my mother passed away in 2006. It's a really modest house, 1,100 square feet. And it's a second home to all of us. It's not our primary residence. Every year from 2006, when my mother died, to 2019, I obtained an all facilities sticker upon presentation of my property tax bill. But beginning in 2019, I was refused a sticker. I was told that because my car was not registered in Cohasset, I did not live here, and I was not entitled to use the beach or the transfer facility. I met with Mr. Senior, who seemed to be under the impression that I do not pay property taxes at the same rate as every other property owner in Cohasset, as he stated that the taxpayers have to bear the burden of expenses not covered by the pay-as-you-throw program at the transfer station, not acknowledging that I am a taxpayer to the same extent as others. I told Mr. Senior that Cohasset was the only town which does not recognize residential property owners as residents entitled to use town facilities. He disputed that, but I have researched the rules about beach parking for every coastal town that has a public beach. And with the exception of Swansea, out of 53 coastal towns, Cohasset is the only one that does not recognize tax-paying property owners as, quote, residents. Some of the rules refer to residents. I had the staff of the rules and regulations to present to you, and I brought them to the town hall, but I can provide that. It's interesting. Some towns refer to out-of-town residents, other towns refer to residents, and they mean anyone who pays taxes. It's either clear in the rule or else I memorialized conversations with every town clerk where it wasn't clear from the rules. Both Massachusetts law and the Cohasset bylaws require that the rules and regulations pertaining to Sandy Beach parking lot be reviewed on an annual basis and filed with the town clerk each year. I have reviewed all the board's minutes from 2017 to the present and find that in all these years, only 2 votes were taken in regard to beach sticker eligibility. There were several votes taken about adjusting the fees, but that's the only time It was in May of 2007 when the nanny passed, which there's no record of when that came into existence, but it was voted to revoke it. And then on the next meeting, it was reinstated. And now I am told that that also has disappeared. That's not what I'm interested in, but it's indicative of the lack of compliance with the rules. Also, there used to be a limit of 5 stickers per household. That there's no record of a vote on that. That's disappeared. Nor is there any documentation of the rules that existed when these permits were allowed. I made numerous requests for records that have been filed annually, and I am told that the only rules that matter are the ones that are in existence now. So I only have the one copy of what is the present rules. I've been informed via email that the only way I can obtain an all facilities sticker is to change the form of ownership of my property, to put it into a family trust. Mr. Senior said that people who hold their property in this manner can have an unlimited number of stickers, even if their cars are not registered in Cohasset. Why and how this rule was passed is undocumented, but it certainly discriminates between taxpayers without any rational basis. Further, it would cost somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 to effect such change to our registered lands title. Reviewing the board's minutes in January 14 of 2020, I learned that while I was being denied a beach permit, the town was allowing the sale of between 160 to 180 permits to out-of-town people. Again, there was no vote and no discussion by the board about the program, just a request by a resident that the board look into these sales. Clearly, I am entitled to an all facilities sticker as provided by Cohasset's bylaws, which the town must comply with. I have made every effort to convince this board, prior board, when I did email all the select people at that time, the town manager and the town clerk to allow me to purchase an all facilities sticker. I have done everything short of filing a lawsuit, but if this board will not recognize my rights by directing the town clerk to issue me an all facilities sticker upon payment of the appropriate fee, I will file a complaint, of which I have provided you, which I dropped off to Tracy Connors when I was at the town hall this evening, in Norfolk Superior Court 30 days from now. If forced to litigate, I will be seeking damages for deprivation of my rights, including violation of due process and equal protection by public officials acting under color of law, ordinance, or regulation. I have put a lot of effort into this, and I've made every effort to secure this right. And I believe since it is a Cohasset bylaw, there's no question that I'm entitled to it. If the town needs to change the bylaw, I believe that has to be done by town meeting. Is that correct?
Christine, the rules of public comment are that we do not deliberate or discuss it. We hear you out.
Sure.
And the board at its discretion may decide to put it on a future. But I think you've indicated you've taken what you just read and submitted it to Tracy, and we will get that submitted to town council to look at. But we can't deliberate on that now.
I appreciate that.
You've clearly spent a lot of work on that, and thank you for coming forward.
No, thank you. I just want to make clear, I just dropped off the complaint, which is drafted. I had these as notes because I was going to do it orally, which I have. So I just dropped off the complaint with a cover letter. Okay.
I would suggest that if you could take your notes and commit it to a narrative, that would probably be very helpful.
How can I submit that? Just let me,
drop it off to Tracy.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. That was quite a good example of somebody who's done their homework. So moving forward, let's go to the police chief contract vote.
So what the board has in front of it tonight are a new contract for the new fire chief and a renewal for Chief Quigley. Kim and I met with both of them, went through their requests, looked at the region, the contract for the fire for Chief Dockeray is right in line with what was posted. The salary's right in there. And the contract was reviewed by council and given a green light. The contract for Chief Quigley is a renewal. There's a couple of new features in there. One is that he's going to be taking over as the events coordinator, which makes sense as the senior public safety official, and he's going to get a small stipend for that. Succeeding retired Chief Sylvia, he's going to become the deputy emergency management director, working under Glenn, as the which is the role that Chief Sylvia played. But Bill is now the senior public safety official, so he'll be fulfilling that role as the deputy. So he'll be getting a small stipend for that as well. Otherwise, his contract's the same. I believe they're both here.
Excuse me, Chris. I think that I'm getting a feedback. Is everybody else getting that feedback? I think it's coming from you, Chris. Yeah, when your green light goes on, are other people hearing that as well?
Yep, there's a hum from Chris's.
I'll have to check my my camera.
Yeah.
Do you still have that headset you used to have?
Actually, I do. Let me plug that in. Can you hear me now?
Yes, but the hum is still there.
Okay. I don't know what to do about that.
Chris,
Well-
did you change your microphone in the bottom left where the mute icon is? Click on the up arrow and just select external headphones or whatever as your speaker, as your microphone.
It should be now. I've switched it over. I don't know what to tell you.
Well,
And
your words are sufficient importance that we can look here beyond the hum.
Okay. So we have Chief Quigley and Chief Docker in the audience. If you have any questions, and again, the contracts, I think you both. And I'm very comfortable recommending them both. They're both for 3 years, and so they'll expire in 2025.
Comments from the board? Are there any comments from the audience?
Jack Diane had her hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Diane.
Okay.
Oh, it's right in the corner.
no problem. No, I actually don't have any questions. I'm very excited to move forward with both of these public servants. My only question, I guess, is this if this is part of through the Town Manager Act, we have the ability to kind of affirm or deny the contract that's between you, Chris, and the fire chief and police chief. Is that correct?
Well, it's between the town. I'm signing as a signatory.
Correct. It's not our contract. Yeah.
Right. So that said, contracts are always given back to the board for review. Again, Chief Quigley is just being renewed. There's no expectation that we're going to do anything else. And Chief Docker is new, as we all know, and this formalizes the employment. That's just so everyone's aware. Even though they're for 3 years, the salaries are only a given for any of us from year to year, depending on what town meeting does. For example, if there's some financial challenges or whatever, the budget still has to be funded. But that's just kind of standard for every contract.
Diane, you're all set? Jean?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, after looking at these, Diane and I did a lot of analysis and research into executive contracts on the town side, and this is sort of reasonable and consistent with what we found previously when looking at varieties of contracts across the board. Really more as to town manager, but even sort of within the ambit of the executive contracts we were looking at within Cohasset. Ideally, it'd be great if we could have, sort of an executive compensation package, but I realize different people want different things, so we have to account for that. And anyway, I just wanted to share that because we did spend a huge amount of time on that.
Yeah, both of you worked very hard, and I think that the town feels a debt of gratitude because I know the hours that two of you spent were just incredible, and I think your work product is very high quality. Any other board comments? Okay, the chair will entertain a motion. I think probably we should do it one by one. So I entertain a motion for the police chief contract vote.
I'll move that we approve the police chief contract for 3 years for William Quigley.
I'll second it.
Yeah. We have a motion made and seconded to approve the police chief's contract. Is there any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, let's proceed to a road call vote. Jean Healy,
Jean Healy, aye.
Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Corey Evans,
Corey Evans, aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Jack Creighton, aye. Congratulations, Chief Quigley. You've done a good job and you've been renewed. Chair will entertain a motion for the fire chief contract vote.
I would move that we approve or affirm the contract for Chief Dockeray that's presented to us.
I second it.
We have a motion made and seconded to approve Chief Dockeray's contract. Is there any discussion? Hearing no further discussion, let's proceed to a roll call vote, excuse me. Corey Evans,
Corey Evans, aye.
Paul Grady,
Paul Grady, aye.
Jean Healy,
Jean Healy, aye.
Diane Kennedy,
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Jack Creighton, aye. Congratulations, Chief Dockeray. Well done. All right, moving forward, board and committee updates. Master Plan Implementation Committee, sidewalk priority. Chris, do you want to?
So Katie Dugan is joining you to give a presentation.
Oh, good. Hi, Kate.
Hi, guys.
Go ahead, Katie.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, I guess I'm going to start first by letting the community know. I've already let your board know, but after 8 years of town service and over 2 years as Master Plan Implementation Committee Chair, I'm resigning as chair of the Master Plan Implementation Committee, and I'm resigning from the Zoning Bylaw Working Group as of next Friday, June 3rd. It's become increasingly clear to me that the 2019 Master Plan has not provided a set of shared values that the leadership of the town is willing to consistently support. Without more vocal advocacy and active involvement from the two boards, planning and select board, which has statutory and financial responsibility for implementation, it's obvious that the priorities that my committee have laid out will not progress. And so tonight, I'd like to take you through what is my final presentation. I'm going to leave it in your hands to move forward here in terms of hopefully narrowing, focusing, and honestly supporting some of the priorities that were identified by the master plan. I truly believe in the document. I think it was a community effort to bring it together. But unfortunately, over the last 2 years, I've learned that there is not consistent support, both financial and in terms of vocal advocacy. And as a result, my ability to move it forward, particularly as it relates to zoning, isn't possible. And so I'm going to take a time out until sufficient resources and advocacy are identified. And at that point, I'd be willing to step back in. But for now, I'm going to hand it back to the select board to further consider and study how they want to move forward, because the way that we've been heading recently, unfortunately, is not going to get the job done. So with that, Chris, I would be happy to present what we did in terms of transportation and circulation and what the sidewalk project could look like if the town was willing to move forward with it. See if I can share my screen. All right. Let me take this down just a little bit. So these priorities are the ones that the master plan implementation laid out in year 1, which was 2020, and year 2, which was 2021. They were actually voted and endorsed by both your board and the planning board. The year 1 priorities, I think you're all very familiar with. The year 2, we indicated we're going to be year 2 plus because we knew that we couldn't phase in many of these initiatives until we cleared or began to make substantive progress on the year 1 initiatives. And unfortunately, as I sit here today, we're largely in the same place as it relates to most of the initiatives as it relates to year 1 and Elm Street zoning, village revitalization, and sewer planning. So we haven't made substantive progress on those. And while I'm going to present to you year 2, I think the question before your board and the planning board as we move forward is this too many? Do we want to narrow this down? In terms of the year 2 priority around sidewalk safety and Route 3A improvements, the Master Plan Implementation Committee committed last summer to begin work to frame out for the community what this could mean in terms of an actual implementation plan. And so we actually met with Concom along with Open Space and Rec in the fall and advocated for a sidewalk segment on Sawyer Street. We met with Open Space to discuss sidewalk priorities and other connectivity issues in town. We had a meeting with Chief Quigley and Public Safety to discuss transportation circulation as it relates to roadway safety from their perspective. We also spent quite a bit of time with Brian Joyce and Jason Federico reviewing details as it relates to the 3A, both the north and south segment improvements, along with reviewing with them the complete streets work that was detailed as part of our application to the state, become part of that program. And then last but not least, we actually reviewed the engineering work that has taken place for preliminary entry into the TIP for 3A North improvement. So we did quite a bit of work over the last 6 months to kind of orient ourselves and try and pull together a preliminary point of view. This page here, I'm not going to go through it in detail, but this is what we presented to your board last summer as what we envisioned what the sidewalk safety and Route 3A implementation priority could look like. And at the core of it was developing a 20-year connectivity plan, which required identifying funding sources above and beyond Chapter 90 and Complete Streets in order to really effectuate a level of investment in the community. Because you'll see later that the Chapter 90 funds are largely committed to other projects for the community, and the Complete Streets are limited in terms of the amount of resources that we'll receive from the state. As always, we're very cognizant in terms of what our barriers to success are. And one of the things, there are 2 things that are hugely critical as it relates to anything on sidewalks, safety, and Route 3A, and it's funding. And it's also public agreement and consensus as to exactly what the priorities are. So the good news is that there are some things that are being done. In 2020, the town actually completed a town common project, which put in new curbs and new sidewalks and generally improved the functionality around the streets around the common. That was funded through a Complete Streets grant. We actually have finally, after 5 or 6 years, have a plan in place and approvals from Concom and the relevant boards in order to move forward with a new sidewalk segment from Fair Oaks to 3A. And that is following on what we all know was work in terms of water mains on that section of the road. The good news for that, we also have funding for that, and that's coming from the mitigation funds that were given to the town back in 2012 when Avalon was completed as a project. And that was a negotiation between the planning board and the applicant in order to put aside those funds. And we're finally putting that roughly $600,000 to work in terms of sidewalks. There are two other projects that are in process as it relates to Route 3A. The Route 3A section has been a work in progress for over 5 years now. It started with the preliminary work back in 2014, 2015. We're now in the final engineering phase, and hopefully beginning in January 2023, we'll actually see that that redesign of the section from Beechwood down to Situate Henry Bailey Turner intersection be completed. And that's being funded by the state because it is a state road and is part of the Transportation Improvement Plan, otherwise known as TIP. We have begun the TIP process for Route 3A North, which the segment would run from Sawyer to MBTA station. We've got in process the preliminary engineering that would take us to 25% design requirements. To move us actually onto the TIP, we have to move from 25 to 75%. And that is an investment that the town is going to have to make in order to ensure that we actually can get on the TIP. And generally it takes anywhere from 4 to 6 years to move through the TIP in order to get funding and get to implementation phase. So the more that we do now, the better in terms of actually having that segment improved. One of the key things about the Route 3A North segment is that that is our connectivity as it relates to sidewalks, most likely for the MBTA station and for connectivity to the Wampatuck and the rail trail. And so this is a piece of connectivity that you'll see in sort of the public comments is a key one. And it really only happens if we get our collective act together in terms of the engineering work that needs to happen in order to get onto the state TIP, because it will be a state project. It's not something that we as a town can undertake ourselves. And then last but not least, Elm Street Corridor is awaiting approval to move to phase 2 engineering. While there is a potential right now for funding that would come from Forward, which is the Charlie Baker Act, that if it happens prior to his departure, would hopefully allow us to move forward with at least a portion of the funding that is needed to complete the Elm Street Corridor redesign. So that is the connectivity plan in terms of what is being done. The real question before the select board and before the community is, where do we want to go next? So what did the community say? There were actually multiple rounds of community input that was done in 2018-19. First was Facebook polls, and there was a lot of activity and a lot of comment that was documented by the original master plan committee around sidewalk priorities. And you see in your upper left-hand corner exactly what those priorities were. And you'll see that Sawyer Street to Pond is one, T Station to Fair Oaks is another, T Station to Forest Avenue. There was a lot of interest in that particular connectivity to our MBTA facilities, but also because of the open space connectivity. There was also a complete street survey that was done, and we needed to do that as part of our grant application to the state to become approved as part of that grant program. And so the complete street survey was a very detailed wiki map that had great interest and great input from the community. And that's what you see in the upper right-hand side. All of that data is still available, and it's actually been documented and kept by the town. So we know exactly what the community said. And then last but not least, we had master plan public forums where, again, we were able to document what the segments were that people were most interested in. And the highest priority one is the one that you see in the little red line, which again is this connectivity from Sawyer Street and Forest to the train station and to the open space. So that's what the community said. So I don't think there's any question in terms of priorities. They have been well documented. We can obviously relitigate and re-ask the community, but there has been quite a bit of work, and it's very well documented in terms of what the segments were that people were looking for additional assistance in terms of either sidewalks or in terms of roadway safety. So what could Cohasset do next? At the bottom of this page is just a quick snapshot of like the multiple pages of information that have been documented by Brian Joyce and our planning department around the projects that the communities have registered interest in. There are 32 of them. There are 11 ADA and crosswalk projects. There's 11 sidewalk projects, which combines new and improvements. And then there's 10 safety and shared roadway projects. These 32 projects in total, if we were to implement them based on preliminary estimates that we worked up with Brian Joyce and Jason Federico, could cost the town upwards of $5.5 million. And so the question before the community is, how does one begin to tackle a project of this magnitude? And so if anybody's interested in learning more, one of the things that we did was actually put together a map that sort of showed exactly where the ADA crosswalks were, where their safety and shared roadway projects were, and where the sidewalk segments are. And all of this is documented in the town's GIS system so that going forward, people can pick up and look at this. So in terms of funding strategies, there's really 4 buckets of funding that we could come up with. First, there's 2 that are sort of on the left-hand side of the page that are grant related. And then there's 2 on the right-hand of the side of the page that really the town controls. From the grant side, one of the primary ways of getting sidewalks and roadway safety projects done is Complete Streets. And the town has already received one of those grants for $254,000 to complete the town common. But unfortunately, this past spring, because of the popularity of the Complete Streets grant program, the state actually capped the amount that municipalities can receive to a maximum award of $400,000 over 4 years. So in terms of what we have available to us in the short term, we have a balance in terms of grant funds that we could apply to the state for and potentially get approval for $146,000. The other big bucket of funding that municipalities have as it relates to roadway improvement is Chapter 90 funds. At least in our case, we have largely fully committed our town's Chapter 90 funds to a 20-year roadway maintenance plan. And so at this point, from the Master Plan Implementation Committee's perspective, unless there was a view, a new view from capital budget, from the select board, and from the town, that there wasn't a need for all of those funds in order to pave our 1.5 miles or 2 miles of new improved roadways every year, we really don't see that as a way to accomplish the sidewalks and the roadway safety, unfortunately. But if it becomes available in the future, it certainly could be used for engineering, design, construction. It is a broad category. It's not just paving that you're allowed to do under Chapter 90. The other 2 buckets that the town controls are mitigation funds, and this is really subject to the planning board negotiating with applicants on specific projects for remediation of impact to the community in that area. And we have been successful in the past. In terms of Avalon, we were able to negotiate a gift agreement there. The current balance, as I mentioned before, on those gift agreements is $590,000, and that's committed largely to the Sawyer Street project. We also have a small balance or smaller balance of $75,000 from the Toll Brothers gift. The hang up is that these mitigation funds don't always match the cost of the end project. And sort of the Toll Brothers mitigation fund is a perfect example of this. It was a $75,000 gift to the town, but the Tupelo Road sidewalks that it could have funded actually cost $300,000. So there's a gap of $225,000 that the town has never prioritized in terms of solving for that impacted community. So one of the things that the Master Plan Implementation Committee would encourage the planning board to do is look look more deeply into the cost of the actual underlying project before gift agreements or mitigation funds are agreed to, because in some cases there's a mismatch between what is actually written into the decision and the end cost of the project. And in the example of the Toll Brothers, there just hasn't been either a political will or frankly financial availability to complete that project. There's been a gap, and that gap remains. And then the last thing that's available to the town is either putting in place a stabilization fund or even a bigger ask, which would be to include it as part of a debt override package and fund up front several of these key projects. But there are mechanisms, and we've talked to Don Pyatt about potentially saving through a stabilization fund incremental amounts of money on an annual basis that could supplement and add to the Complete Streets funding of $400,000 every 4 years. So the town is really at a crossroads right now. We have a set of 32 priorities that the community has articulated that they're interested in. I'm sure that if we went back out to the community, there'd be even more priorities. But one of the things that we need to solve for are what is going to be our funding strategy? Are we going to put in place a more active mitigation fund strategy? Are we going to step up and create a stabilization fund? Are we even going to go further and create some kind of debt override? But absent that, we will be able to complete a modest level of these changes based on Complete Streets. And while the state has come out and said you can receive a maximum award of $400,000 over 4 years, the program currently is oversubscribed. So I think we should be cautious in thinking that that is going to be reliable when we ask for it. I think over the long term, we'll probably get a sufficient amount of funding, but in the short term, we did put in 2 applications last cycle to see if we could tap into that balance of grant funds, and we were denied. And so I think we're going to have to be patient with the state in terms of the Complete Streets funding. So it's back to the community and back to the select board as to how we want to move forward. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to the select board and ask that you guys take it from here. There's work that's been done. The Master Plan Implementation Committee has sort of gotten this far, but ultimately it comes down to a funding mechanism and further refinement of the priorities in terms of where we want to head.
Well, thank you very, very much, Kate. I think the town owes you and the other members of the implementation committee a debt of gratitude. You worked very, very hard. I know I've attended numerous, meetings. I think you've identified some of the problems. I think it is heartening to see that we have moved forward. I think you've also identified the fact that these cost a lot of money and we may not have the money immediately available, but you worked very, very hard. And I think, thank you very, very much. And I know you won't be far away. I spoke to you earlier today and indicated we will not let you get away. We'll let you take a little.
Unfortunately, people do have my cell phone number. Yes.
Yes, we do. Okay. Anyway, other comments from the board?
Diane and Corey and Jean.
Who was first?
I'll just jump
Diane.
in. Thank you, Katie. I feel your frustration, and I think one of the things I want to go even back before we started the master plan. And when we were having those discussions, there was a lot of pushback from people saying, well, we shouldn't be doing a master plan because, we know what our priorities are. Mind you, this is either the select board and or the planning board. And, that changes every couple of years or every year. There's a new, and one of the things was we do plans and they sit on the shelves. And for that reason, I so appreciate your incredible dedication to this as it were a full-time job over the last number of years, because we were bound and determined to do the master plan, do it right, get the buy-in. We had hundreds of hours worth of public meetings. And then, even just creating the working groups took hours and hours, as you know, talking to council and figuring out the best way to construct those and make sure that the cycle was completed, that the representatives were communicating with the various boards that were making decisions. And there was definitely some stoppage there that should never have happened. And I just, to my colleagues, we have a goals workshop scheduled very soon. We've been talking over the last number of months of really making a commitment to capital financial planning. And we have to do this because this is why we keep running up against resistance, is because these projects just don't move at a pace where they ever get done. And then you're back to the drawing board. It's the same thing with town hall. And it's just an unfortunate pattern, and we have to become more decisive at this board. And also, I won't speak on behalf of the planning board. Paul's from there, so he probably has some insight, but we have to move projects. And I am sorry what happened at special town meeting last December, because I still haven't recovered from that. That is something that the town wants, the community, the residents, citizens want that. And it unfortunately just didn't happen because a lot of noise was made and we hadn't teed it up properly. So Katie, thank you.
Thank you.
Jean?
I think Corey was ahead of me, so.
Oh, Corey. Forgive me, I'm not very good at looking for those little yellow hands, but I'm getting better. Corey?
I'll echo some of what my colleague, Member Kennedy, said in my comments, but I've got a couple takeaways from the sidewalk priority in particular, which I think are notable and we should remember. One observation, which was funny because it didn't even occur to me, even though this is how I use the link between Forest Ave and the MBTA station. A lot of people are discussing how people aren't really commuting in the train, but I'm in Wampatuck, I don't want to say every day, but close to it. And I run by a lot of people that are on that road and use that road for recreation. They ride their bikes. We've got some of the best biking trails in the state at Wampatuck. And, that's it's a dangerous corridor. So I do think remembering that it's not just a sidewalk to a train, it's a sidewalk to green space. I think that's important. The second thing, and I've brought this up multiple times, but it's always worth repeating. When it came up to when we talked about the TIP funding, is that if we want to get grant funding, and everyone wants to get grant funding, it requires an investment from the town in the first place. We have to get projects to places. We can't just apply for grants without spending some money of our own. So if we want to get $5 million, we probably have to spend $250,000. So money's not free. It requires us to make an investment. So when we're looking at spending money, we need to be aware of, is this money just going to get us the $50,000, or can we turn $50,000 into $1 million? And it will require investment and it will require money, but we have to keep our eye on the larger amount, the larger price, because that's how we actually get things done. The second thing is, or the third thing, I can't count, is that any discussion we have about capital planning long-term, this has to be part of it. One of the things that when I ran years ago, or 2 years ago, not that long, I talked about sidewalks. Sidewalks I'm passionate about are, there's places on Beechwood, on North Main that are just blatantly dangerous. And there's other places that are just missing sidewalks. And I don't want to, we've had people hit in town through the years, and I don't think there's any excuse for us to not do something about it. So if we're going to talk about capital planning, this has to be a priority one. It is for me. That's what I've got. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that, Corey. And I would say that one of the interesting things in talking to Chief Quigley about this, that there's a lot of low hanging fruit in terms of roadway safety that doesn't involve sidewalks. So when we talk about this, he encouraged us to think not just about sidewalk segments, but roadway safety in a broader sense. And some of it's not sexy. It's signage, it's painting, stop lines. And so there's a broader package that needs to be considered. And some of the low hanging fruit, honestly, is not that expensive.
Okay.
You have to get through Diane for signage, and right now I think line painting is a little bit of a hot
I know,
button
it's a sore
topic, so
subject. I hear you.
Whoops, we moved around. There you are, Jean.
Well, thank you, Katie, for your service to the town. And I too share your frustration in the speed by which we've been moving, whether it's on zoning or capital planning, which have been two select board goals over the last year. And it is my intent as vice chair to be on top of our new chair to make sure that every meeting going forward will be a discussion on this, particularly nearer to the beginning when we are all fresh and happy instead of at the end, so that we are proactively moving on all this. And I would just say generally, I don't need to tell you, but the government is a frustrating place. Having now worked for multiple attorney generals and 3 presidents, I can attest to that. The winds come in and out in terms of people's interest and excitement on various things. And ultimately the people get the government they deserve. And so if they're unwilling to come to town meeting and support the changes that they so desperately claim to want, then I think that, that's a reality that we have to deal with at the same time as we've tried to do, including with Select Board Evans, make town meeting more accessible, because that is the way through remote voting, which we need to focus on too, because that is the way that a lot of people, I think, will be able to participate more easily in what is probably a pretty inaccessible town meeting right now. But more specifically on the sidewalk issue, I was sort of thinking along the same lines as Member Evans with respect to have any of these assumptions, ones that we need to rethink or test. I realize you got a lot of feedback prior to the pandemic. I'm wondering if, for example, recreation has increased within Cohasset that leads to, new usage and demands in certain areas that maybe we didn't see before, like Wampatuck, or, I always see a ton of people walking in the Atlantic, the Beach Street, the Jerusalem Road, even more so than I remember in the past, just because I think people have gotten used to, frankly, walking around our streets, which is great. But that also means a lot of more people are walking around our streets. And so the information that you've done and all the work that you've done is not going to go to waste. I definitely think the select board is going to take everything that you've said to heart, including all of the research that your group has done. And I think what we probably need to do is start narrowing to a more realistic bucket of SMART goals, attainable within our timelines, lifetimes, in order to really begin to make some progress that will perhaps encourage people to participate more, vote more, and also see that the government is doing good work for them. And so that's definitely top of mind for me. And I appreciate all the work you've done to help facilitate that.
Diane, is that a new hand or the old one?
A new one, just 2 quick things. One
Okay.
is just on sidewalks.
Yeah.
One of the things, and I think many of us probably got a resident letter, but we have to maintain them too. So it's one thing to build. We have sidewalks in various places that probably can be ticked off and maintained better. And I also do want to commend Katie and the impetus, the committee that has given impetus to one project on the master plan priority list of affordable housing, which has really made great leaps. Again, we haven't created new housing, but we have structures in place where we can actually start moving if we need to on that. So again, thank you.
And you're right, Diane, that of the 11 sidewalk segments, not all of them are new. In fact, I would say over half of them are restructuring existing. So I don't read into that there's 11 new segments coming. In fact, there's a lot of improvements to existing segments.
Right. Paul?
I just wanted to thank Katie. Katie worked with me a little bit on the planning board. And just so you understand, priority of mine is the safety, primarily of the kids, but sidewalks, people, pedestrians, elderly, you name it. And sidewalks are particularly keep in mind. I also want to thank you very much for the zoning. And personally, I'll say it out loud, I think you got thrown to the wolves at town meeting. And I blame communication on that. That's another reason. I think that people have to be aware of the consequences of not showing up, being there, easier access to meetings. So I agree with the member Evans about getting as much access to those meetings and the consequences of the decisions that are made by a small group. So again, thank you so much. And hopefully you'll be back because we are a needed quantity. I will say that. And
As I said, it's a timeout, and we'll reassess. You guys have a lot to think
good
about
for you.
for sure.
And we'll be thinking about it. Promise you that.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Katie, you've done an excellent job, and I think it isn't quite as dire as you portray it. I think Gene had a good point. You know, democracy is the worst form of government, except the alternatives. We did have a contentious town meeting. A vocal segment spoke vehemently and sometimes eloquently. But there's a little healthy to and fro, and I think that's one of the ways that Cohasset is a good town, because people do go back and forth. Progress is slow. 1 step forward, 2 back, 3 steps forward, 1 back. But I think that we're really seeing, we're forging a mission. The other thing is, as a town and as a board, we have to understand that we're 8,000 people. Even though the homes are wealthy and that's a good tax base, we don't have a huge commercial tax base. We don't necessarily be first in line for various public funding. So we have some challenges, and it's a little difficult, and we have to decide what we can. In the last part of Katie's letter, she makes a very simple plea that maybe we need to look at things that are achievable and we can do. And I think as a board, and we think about our goals, we should look at achievable goals where we get the bang for the buck. And the other thing that's come up is the money. Now, I had a talk with Paula, the other town treasurer, about funding and bond funding and how that works. And when one bond rolls over, do you replace it? And I think we're going to have to get an overall idea of the costs of the sum total of capital costs. And I have spoken with some of the people from capital budget and some other very skilled financial people around town. And the idea is, if we say, all right, we know we're going to have to do something with the schools. We don't know how much. We know we're going to do something with the fields. We know we have to do something along Elm Street. We know we have to do the town hall. Well, I think it's our responsibility as a board to get some kind of rough figure on that and figure out, or get one of the capital budget committee to start figuring out, this is what we're going to have to spend over X amount of years. How do we budget it? But I don't want to go on too much about that. But Katie, a lot of the work that you've done has identified things that we're going to have to put into that mixer of public policy. And for my fellow board members, this is a good call of what we need to be doing. And let's do, as Katie suggested, let's find things that are on the short term doable and on the long term financeable. Anyway.
No, I think unfortunately we suffer from a lack of institutional muscle memory in terms of implementation, and we need to build up that muscle strength with some projects first before we start tackling some of the bigger ones. And to your point around the comprehensive public facilities plan, or in the capital planning that's associated with that, that was one of the things that we laid out as a year 2 goal, and actually talked to the select board last summer about, and being a implementation priority in terms of the capital planning, the facilities planning that had to fall with the select board because of the size and the magnitude of it. So glad to hear that's on your radar screen, because that is sort of a fundamental underpinning for a lot of this.
Yes, and you might have seen, since you brought it up last summer, that's been a recurring theme.
Well, and Jack, just to interject, that was a select board goal, and we definitely should have had it on, I think, our meetings much more often and more frequently. And I'm not sure if you attended any of our meetings in March where this was brought up and discussed, including Hingham's sustainable budget plan, which talked both about capital and permanent and their permanent budget challenges that they're working through. that they went through, the process that I envision we will start to go through later on in June in terms of convening a group of, interested, folks from different relevant committees and really beginning to line up all of the big projects, the timelines, and then look at all the different revenue streams, which I would suggest, frankly, go beyond the ones that you've listed. Hingham went through this and looked at a bunch of different revenue streams, and we can, obviously talk about all that later, but it's really to address the capital infrastructure needs to your point about how to increase the stabilization fund on a more consistent, recurring, long-term basis, because that's likely what we'll need. And so that is definitely something that's been in the works, and for a variety of reasons, scheduling and town meeting wise, it's been, pushed into June, but I do think that is.
And you also have under the municipal, I forget what it was called, it was put in place like 5 years ago. You can create specialized stabilization funds. So it doesn't have to be a general stabilization fund, but you can create special purpose stabilization funds that help you keep an eye on the ball as to what you're saving for. And so it creates a mechanism for you to create that savings account, which is something that I do think that the town is going to need to develop that kind of mechanism in order to chunk away at some of these priorities, because it's not going to be all readily available for debt. It's going to take some saving over time to achieve some of the objectives.
Yeah.
That's
So,
the Municipal Modernization Act.
Yeah, there you go.
sorry.
That the
Right.
MMRA.
I can't believe you couldn't remember it.
I know,
That's what
sorry.
we need, another acronym.
Another acronym, exactly.
So are there any other comments from the select board? Katie, thank you very much. And you're not getting away. You think you are, but cherish the illusion. So,
Okay, I'll try and escape for the summer.
okay, very good.
Awesome.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
guys.
much.
All right, bye.
Moving forward, Norfolk County Liaison. And that would be, is that you,
That's
Jean?
me. Yeah, that's me. So as folks may know, I'm on the Norfolk County Advisory Board, which is a board that advises the commissioners on a few things, but fundamentally the adoption of the budget, sort of akin to what happens with our advisory board. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a select board member. I've learned other towns appoint members of their community to the advisory board, FYI. But most recently, we did have a vote as it related to the Norfolk County budget, and the budget recommended by the commissioners was passed. And the point that's probably most relevant, well, there's 2 points. The first point is the sale of Quincy District Court is still out there lingering. And the only reason that's relevant for us is that that's a big parcel of land that's going to be sold.
Should be burned down.
And-
Sorry. Spent a lot of time in that building. It's a terrible building. I apologize.
The state is going to buy
Corey,
it.
we don't want to talk about why you're in the court so often, okay?
Yep.
Mediating. I had a badge and everything.
So the state's going to buy it, and I made the pitch on behalf of Cohasset and other interested communities that maybe some of the money from the sale of that court could go into a fund for communities to apply for money that we cannot otherwise, or projects that are not otherwise eligible for grants like ARPA funding. And so what I mean specifically by that could be municipal buildings like a town hall, right? Where there's not as many obvious grant sources out there. So anyway, I put that pitch out there at the Norfolk County meeting. Nothing happened with it. It's just an idea that I'm trying to gin up some interest and support for as Norfolk County, which really consists of, in terms of assets and administration, there's an Aggie school that, FYI, our residents are able to access if you want to send your child to the agricultural school. That is something that's run by Norfolk County. We have a golf course in Wollaston, if you'd like to attend that. And then the other big sort of asset or function is the Registry of Deeds for Norfolk County. And the registrar is a publicly elected official, just like our commissioners, and there's 3 of them. And so one of the main issues that was sort of before the Norfolk County Advisory Board for many, many months was the Norfolk County Commissioners were looking at essentially a consolidation or shared services model relating to technology and some other services, which would include technology services for the Registry of Deeds. The Registry of Deeds is probably the #1 service that touches most of our residents. If you want to refinance, if you want to originate a mortgage, if you want to do a name change, if you want to do anything relating to your property, typically you have to go through the Registry of Deeds. So it's very critical to the functioning of all of our real estate functions. And there was a disagreement between the registrar and the Norfolk County Commissioners as to whether the registrar should have a CTO within the Registry of Deeds that reports to him, or if that should be part of the shared services model within Norfolk County. Long story short, I ultimately voted for it to be part of the shared services model of Norfolk County. And that was for a variety of reasons that I'm not going to belabor unless someone wants me to. But I did find the opinion of one of my fellow advisory board members very compelling. And this was the Quincy, Norfolk County Advisory Board member, who was also the former CTO of the Norfolk Registry of Deeds. And he gave, I think, some helpful input into that there used to be more of a shared services model, that it was possible that a CTO didn't necessarily need to be on site. But he and I both echoed that if we were going to do some of the big technology updates that we would like to do at the Registry of Deeds, because they are using a relatively antiquated localized system, that is incumbent on all of us to collaborate and to do so harmoniously for the sake of all of our constituents, because that is a very tricky, big project. And we need to be careful and cooperative in effectuating it. And so it's my hope that in the future, this is the beginning of the shared services model that will help enable some better technology for our residents that are routinely using the Registry of Deeds, and that we can, vis-a-vis this consolidation model, begin to really upgrade the technology in the Registry of Deeds through the cooperation of the registrar and the commissioners. So that's where it landed. Happy to take any questions.
Well done, Jean. And by the way, if you want to see political infighting, the battles in Norfolk County are unbelievable. I was so glad to pass the baton to Jean, and I didn't tell her why, but I apologize, Jean. Anyway, any comments on that?
I have one, if I may.
Okay.
Jean, we're all being bombarded by the county CTO office regarding the in-house position, yada, yada, yada. From your perspective, does our town, should we have a position on this? Is this something we should really dig into? Is this more internal politics?
It's already done, Corey.
Okay, good.
This is why I was advocating that if we wanted to have a position, we needed to do this in April, because it was on the agenda for early May in terms of that vote. So I voted on behalf of myself as the Norfolk County Advisory Board member, but I did not present, an official Cohasset Select Board letter or position.
Okay.
There was some towns that did, 1 or 2, I want to say. Most towns did not. So we did not, the town of Cohasset, our select board did not have an official position on that.
Okay, well,
Which I
we're
think
not
is
gonna get
fine.
those letters anymore. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so, moving on, let's discuss our town manager. I'm not our town manager, our goal meeting on June 6th. I have one suggestion that we have kind of our normal town goals, but also it would be nice if each of us would think of 1 or 2 very, very small things that would immediately improve the quality of the town. Might be something like the trash pickup at Sandy Beach, or the neatening up and sweeping the sand around the village. Corey, you'd be very good at understanding that particular issue. You've done a lot of work on that. But little things, quality of life things that really don't cost any money that can be done by the town or personnel we already have. But that's just a nice thing for us to do. But if people could give some very, very serious thought to the strategic long-term goals of this town, and then realize where we have to work together and find things that are achievable within the our realm. And I see your hand is up, Diane. Go ahead.
Thanks. And I'm glad you said that because I was going to bring it up. First of all, are we going to have a consultant facilitate it? A, and then B, could we possibly send out maybe the last 2 years worth of goals for all of us, especially Paul, to review?
I don't know. Chris, do we have a consultant on there? And what is the board think?
Yeah, we do. We have Tricia Fincasey, who's facilitated the last couple of sessions, is scheduled back on the 6th. And we can most certainly share the last couple of years. And she also has a little homework she gives to everybody. So Jack, that would help facilitate that. She'd also like to talk with a new chair, which is you, in advance of the meeting to understand, where to go with this. So to facilitate that.
And Diane is up again.
Yeah, no, I what I wanted to circle back to, Jack, is I completely agree with you. I have a friend that just got onto the Somerville City Council, and they each counselor gets to put in like 10, requests, 10 funding requests into their cycle, and then they pare it all down so that everybody gets one left over. So I do think it's a really good idea outside of the big, kind of structural goals that we're going to set to come up with something, whatever, like, wouldn't it be nice if?
Yeah, exactly. And people like that. And I think sometimes in the big picture, but well said, Diane. Anybody else comments? Okay, so not hearing anybody else. I don't see, and I'm looking for those yellow hands.
Yeah, Jack, the only thing I
Go
would
ahead.
say is, and Chris, maybe this is something that you want to talk with the consultant about, is that she should know that that is our intent going in, because this is something we did discuss last year with her. I brought it up in terms of we want very specific SMART goals, and she thought the bigger picture was better. And I think we're moving, maybe trending towards, we want a little more specificity on short and long term. And so I think that, it would be good for her to be aware that that's sort of what we want as an outcome too.
And I think as vice chair, if it would be appropriate for Jean to be part of that meeting as well. If you have time, Jean. Well,
I just one thing to add to something Jean had said, is maybe establishing, I don't know what it was like in the past, but establishing timelines and dedicated timelines and trying to stick to them. That would be important to me. It's like if we set maybe a schedule, we agree to it, and that those timelines are kept. And if not, there's a reason for that. It's spelled out in writing so we can justify why it's being put down the road, for lack of a better word. But I think maybe tighten things up is what we try to do in the planning board, but and stick to it. Come to an agenda and stick to it, and communicate it publicly. That's what I would say to that.
okay. Any other comments? Okay, so Chris, I'll get together with you and the consultant, and if Jean can be part of that meeting, that would be very, very helpful. So if you could let both of us, know, and Jean, I'm pretty flexible in my schedule. I know you're not as flexible as I am, but I'll work my schedule around yours. All right, select board comments. So Corey.
So this was going to be, but after what we heard from Katie, this is going to be my comments, but something that Jean said also is going to tie in. And basically, I think this board has to have a very honest conversation with itself and with the town about what getting stuff done means, and whether we're actually committed to any of the things that we heard about today, or if we're gonna, you know, toss them out and go a different direction. I do think that, you know, there's been a worrying trend of recycling and just doing the same thing over and over again. I remember when we were doing the economic development work, we found plans from 15 years ago that were basically the same conclusions that we had. I just see that same cycle happening. I do think that part of the honest discussion has to do with something that Mr. Creighton pointed out, which is about how we pay for these things. Member Healy mentioned the sustainable budget plan from Hingham, which, you know, I did actually see and read when it was completed, I think in the beginning of this year. And I recall that one of the things it mentioned was that basically to meet its sustainable budget goals, the town would be looking at budget overrides or multiple budget overrides and debt exclusions. So, I mean, if that's the model that we're going to follow, we have to be able to have that honest conversation with people that, you know, it's good. It's not just, you know, it's going to take money to pay for this stuff. So I do think it's nice for us to talk about these things and say that we're actually for them. But this board needs to be honest with itself and its members about whether we're willing to actually, you know, ask for the money from our residents. So I look forward to those conversations. Thank you.
Mr. Grady. First time, Mr. Grady, first selectman comments.
Well, I just spoke. I was just listening to member Evans. So
No, this is select board comments.
comments? I just made a couple.
Oh, okay.
So I'm pretty good, but I actually agree with what Corey just said there. And just as a new member, I will say this. Yeah, there are some goals and I'd like to see something happen. And to answer the one question, no, I'm not afraid to ask the town. So that's just me personally, but I hope that's in conjunction with the board and I hope we all work together very well. But I think that if we come at it united, I think that there's not much the town won't do if we're showing progress. That's just my thought on that.
Okay. Thank you. Jane. You're muted.
Sorry, I want to congratulate Jack and Paul on your recent elections. Welcome back. Welcome to the select board. I also wanted to congratulate all the rest of the candidates who won their seats or who ran for seats. As we all know, running a campaign, it takes a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of courage and willingness to put yourself out there. And I applaud those people who did, all of us, plus everyone else who were candidates, because I think our town needs more of that, more participation. It's good, it's healthy. So congratulations to you, Jack and Paul. The thing I also wanted to mention is we did have a field study presentation on May 16th. So for those of you who missed it and were interested, we should, I think, have the video up, but you know, if you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. And I do agree with you, Corey, in terms of the capital planning process. This is why I have been advocating that people read that Hingham plan to understand the reality of what we're asking for when we come up with projects like Town Hall, like Elm Street, like these big picture projects that are out there. There are real mathematical realities, and a lot of that will fall into potentially a debt exclusion bucket, or it will fall into other revenue sources we're going to have to consider if we're not going to do a debt exclusion, like, for example, you know, increase on local receipts with respect to those taxes, because as Member Creighton pointed out, Cohasset is not necessarily inclined to easily get grants, as we've seen in the past. And so I think this is going to be a great discussion. And I think actually, ironically, we will probably end up hopefully starting to get a lot accomplished. But as we all know, a lot of this is also going to come down to communication and doing that better and more effectively. And so I think that's probably going to be a key prong of our work.
Thank you, Jane. Diane.
Perfect segue, because I actually believe communication is like the answer to everything. and duct tape, of course. One of the things I agree with all of this, and I think that we owe more than anybody are the people that serve on our boards and committees, support and guidance when possible. And I think I would like to actually talk about sort of our liaison structure, because I think it fractures us too much. There's not enough coming back together and having those conversations. And I think we need to be more intentional about that through our agendas, because what I fear is so many of these projects and so much of the hard work that gets poured into doing something, 3, 4, I think, town hall committees in the last 15 years. And we burn people out and nothing happens. And I think and then it's harder to find people to serve. It's harder to find people to run, as we saw on every race on the ballot, with the exception of the select board. So for that reason, we do need to frame this in any way we can and communicate how it has to happen so that we can continue to attract people into our government. So that also is a call out to everybody that we have openings on every committee in town. We have people whose terms are up and need to get renewed, and that process happens over the next 5 to 6 weeks. So we need to be, Paul, as clerk, you'll be part of that, tracking and helping to get people's applications in and working on the process of interviews. So that's a super exciting time of year. A little more of a somber, but Cohasset, wonderful Cohasset story now is that Monday is Memorial Day. Chris, if you could, because we do have a new member, and actually, Corey, I don't know if you've participated in the parade before, because it's the last 2 years have been pandemic. But there is a schedule of events on Memorial Day that begins with breakfast at the Legion, and then we get on a bus and we go to visit the various cemeteries, and then ultimately go to the South Shore Music Circus and do a parade. So we can jump in at any point of that, but it really is a wonderful, I'm always a little embarrassed to be there as a select board member and not a veteran marching, but it's a real honor and privilege to honor not only memorialize our veterans, but the people in Cohasset that put excuse me, so much work into really honoring veterans throughout the year. So if you could send that schedule out to all of us, that we have it, and hopefully I'll see everybody on Monday. Thank you.
Well said, Diane. And Chris, you and I probably need to sometime tomorrow or Thursday, make sure we get that firmed up. It's a little, when this whole process comes so close to Memorial Day. We had a very, very strong election, contested, but it was a clean election. It was an election about values, visions. There wasn't political backbiting. There wasn't, well, there may have been, but there wasn't a vicious personal attack tone to it. It really characterized democracy, local, small town Cohasset, what makes the character of this town so very, very special. And yes, I did well, and I am so honored that so many of my townspeople felt comfortable giving me a vote. And that's a special trust. And each member of us on the board, we always should remember, at least I remember, and I know my other board members, that people said, we trust you. We trust you to lead our town. We entrusted a portion of our sovereign government power to you, members of the select board. And that's a sacred trust. And I'm very proud. I know each of you very well. And I know in the core of behind your public service is that you understand that there's a trust given to us by the voters. So that being said, we'll see everybody on Memorial Day, and there is nothing for 45 days. And now that I'm chair, I can't do my traditional call for adjournment. So I pass that hat, whoever wants to call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second. We have a motion to adjourn made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, call the roll. Corey,
Corey Evans, aye.
Paul,
Paul Grady, aye.
Jean,
Jean Haley, aye.
Diane,
Diane Kennedy, I.
Jack Creighton, aye. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you shortly.
Good night, everybody.